What is good people? You are now listening to another episode of Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth. I am your humble narrator, Danny Foxworth, and today, once again, we have an extremely special guest. I became familiar with this brother on IG, seeing his artwork always posted up, and when I realized that, yo, he makes dope artwork and he's local. Oh, and he sells his stuff at the market. Oh yeah, I'm pulling up. And man, I tell you, whenever I got to his booth, I was just blown away by the artwork. So much so that I had to cop a piece of my own. And bro, this man is an amazing talent. But from the metro, from the Columbia area, currently residing in the Chuck. Ladies and gentlemen, we got the good brother Carlos Bilal in the building. Carlos, what's good, bro?
What's good, Danny? Dan the man, what's up, bro?
Man, I'm cooling, man. I can't make no noise. So
I hear that, man. I appreciate this opportunity. Tell you the truth, this is like my first interview in a long time since social media popped off. I mean, I did
wow.
some radio spots and stuff like that over the years, but as far as like interviews online, this got to be the first one, I would say.
Man,
And
bro.
I appreciate the extension now, bro.
Absolutely, man. The people need to know about you. So
Yeah.
from the big, I'm gonna start from this past Sunday. You recently were a participant at the Black Boy Art Show up in Columbia. So tell us about that experience. What was that like?
Well, the Black Boy Art Show is a nationwide art tour with Black men from the age 21 and up. And they travel from city to city, mostly the major markets, your Brooklyns, your DCs, your Miamis, your ATLs, your LAs, your Dallas. And I was surprised. I wasn't surprised when they stopped in Charlotte. So when I saw they stopped and I saw the advertisement last in 2022, I said, oh, they're going to be in Charlotte this year. So, I submitted my application. They want to see some artwork. I got the work for them. So when they saw the work, it was a go. So I'm like, all right. And only thing I had to do was get some stuff ready. And I was just coming fresh out of the Mojo Art Festival this past October, the Mojo Art Festival of 2022. And I tried about 3 years in a row to get into the Mojo Art Festival for a jewelry exhibition. I was like snug 3 or 4 years in a row. And I was like throwing them heat, fire, fire, fire. I'm like, who the hell like judging, So the last year, like I submitted some older work that was like custom. And I said, if this don't make it, somebody gonna get a nasty email. And fortunately, it went through. They accepted it, and they accepted the piece that I named Afro-Carolinian. It was a big 3-piece triptych that had the images of South Carolina and Africa put together, which both images is similar. They're like upside down triangles to me. So I kind of intertwined the image on the centerpiece, and the two end pieces, I had Africa on one side, I had South Carolina on the other side. And when I submitted that, it was a go. Unfortunately, that week of the show, we had the hurricane warnings and stuff, so they shut everything
Oh,
down. It took 2 weeks. It took a week off the 2-week exhibition. So about time everything cleared up, they was telling us come and pick up our artwork. So I'm like, well, at least I got my foot in the door. That's something I needed. Like, you see what I'm about, I'm gonna take it from here. So I was fresh off that. So I'm like, well, I came up with the piece called Afro-Carolinian. So I said, I'm gonna do a series called Afro-Carolinian. And I decided to do 4 pieces. And since I moved to Charleston, I've been like very into the Geechee Gullah culture, and more so, because it's part of my South Carolina heritage too. So I'm like, but it's not as strong in Columbia because we straight country in Columbia. Nothing to Geechee about us is straight country. But you could trace the bloodline back to the shores of Charleston as well. But I said, I'm going to do this 4-piece series called Afro-Carolinian. And I said, I want to include those African masks, which resembles, when you see a lot of my artwork, you see a lot of the African masks is from the countries that the slaves was brought from and brought to Charleston. Countries like Mali, Senegal, Western Congo, Angola, Guinea, Gambia. And I wanted to do something modern as well. So I had the mass representation and also the descendants. And I did the modern clothes to kind of resemble today. And been down to the market for the last 4 years because that was a process. Just getting in the market is not as easy as people think, and it takes you about 8 to 10 years to become permanent at the market. This is my 4th or 5th year there. So and you have families that have been there for 120 years. A lot of the Black families that have been there, they pass on that membership down, and that's something I'm kind of banking on. If I get old and my sons need a job, they'll never be broke. They take it to the market, sell their art, But with the Afro-Carolinian series, I did a 4-piece, and you purchased one of the prints. I appreciate the love and the support because you said, I'll be back. Normally people come to my table and say, I'll be back. That's the way to escape and never come back. So when you came back, I said, okay, he about it. So, but that piece right there, I did for the Charlotte Black Boy Art Show. That whole 4-piece series I did only for that show right there. And I actually sold one piece has a guy holding a crab. That piece is called crab picking, which is, crab is something that's in abundance down in the Low Country. It's one of the main cuisines down there, part of the main cuisines. And the background is more like James Allen, John Allen, the marshes and stuff. The other piece is a sister holding a sweetgrass basket. She has a different African mask on, and her background is more like Highway 17, what a sweetgrass basket stations are. The other piece is a lady holding a plate of soul food, which the rice is in the forefront due to the fact that the rice was the main export from South Carolina, from Charleston during the 17th century before cotton took over. And that background is more like, a Muskegon Beach area, like more closer to the rice fields. And the other one was the MJ, the Rose Boys, MJ. And I said, okay, if I'm doing a show in Charlotte, I'm gonna do a shout out to Jordan and North Carolina, and that's why I thought of the Jordan jersey with the gold chains, the tongue sticking out the mask, and that was more of a downtown setting. Yeah, exactly. The downtown setting with the single and double houses and I did that one particularly for the Rose Boys because they're considered an eyesore to the city. And tell you the truth, they may be like the last symbol or the last sign of the Geechee Gullah culture in downtown Charleston due to gentrification, even though they don't want to see them boys selling flowers, but they do have to have some respect for the people they're trying to get the money from as well too. But I incorporate them inside a lot of my art because I was speaking with one of the chairmen at the African American Museum back about 2020, and they had a lecture with Dr. Henry Gates at the College of Charleston, and he was promoting his new book and his new documentary about the Reconstruction. And I ran up, I was trying to get some artwork to Dr. Gates, and I ended up running into one of the chairman members for the museum, and I had a conversation with him about anything that's going into the museum is considered extinct or going to be extinct or something of the past. So you putting the Geechee Gullah culture inside the museum, and that's telling me, people may look at it different, but it's telling me that that this culture is this living history is dying, due to the gentrification of people's dispersing. We talk about gentrification in these big cities, but we don't talk about gentrification inside the small, mid-sized cities, or even more so the southern cities and towns and counties where we have majority of the Black people. When you go to major cities, you only have the Black population in those cities. And if you go outside the cities, you don't see no Blacks. But throughout the South, you go to your Crosses, you go to your Sumters and your Walterboroughs and your other small towns. You can see a slew of Black folks everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And, me being from Columbia, I've been removed from Columbia about for 9 years. I've been based out of Columbia about for 9 years, now going on 10 years next year. And I see a big change in Charleston in the 9 years I've been there. And I definitely see a big change in Columbia with all the projects downtown Columbia, then tore down. all the projects by Allen and Benedict College. And I'm like, man, even through a Starbucks where the hood used to be at, when the project used to be at. So, when you see the Starbucks sign, like, back to that art show with the Black Art Show in Charlotte, I'm like, okay, when I presented that work, there's a lot of great talented brothers that come to these art shows. And, as an artist, you got to bring your A game too. You know what I'm saying? You can't be intimidated, and, as an artist, you respect the next man's craft because you know what it takes to make, you know what I'm saying? So, and that was my first show I ever did in Charlotte, I believe. But when I pulled up, it was like, okay, the vibe was there, and before that, I kind of got out of the art game for a long period of time due to marriage and kids and life periods. So I kind of fell back all the way back before until I moved to Charleston. But I was doing a lot of stuff in Atlanta. That was one of my bases I was making my money at with the art. And when I did the Black Boy Art Show, I think they went to Brooklyn after that. So I'm like, okay, I'll wait until next year. So when I saw it online on IG, they said they're gonna do the summer and fall tour, which are gonna hit up more of the mid-sized cities, your Raleighs, your Columbias, your Clevelands, your Oaklands. So I said, okay, that's they going in my backyard when they talking about Columbia. So I'm pulling up. So when I pull up, I'm gonna show out. So that's what I did, and I'm always intrigued with the other artists as well. I get a next brother their props. It was some great artwork out there. And, when you're dealing with South Carolina, you're dealing with a certain economic class. And especially dealing with the young blacks from the age of 18 to 25, they may not have as much young professionals as your Charlottes and the Atlantas. So that means they don't have as much disposable income to spend on art. Like they're going to buy their Jordans and the eyelashes and the front laces and stuff like that. But art may not be a thing that's important to them. And when I first started at the city market downtown, I was selling my art for cheap because I wanted more black people to buy. I wanted them to be art collectors, art buyers. And one of the guys at the market said, man, your art too good to be selling for $10 a print. I'm new to the game. I'm just trying to, see what my price point is. But when somebody else came to me and told me about that, I'm seeing they making about $1,500-$1,800 in 2 days. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to raise my prices then. He said that I'm gonna do it. So when I did that, it seemed like I got more traffic because people really want to buy. When you're talking about art, they really want to buy something that they could afford, not something that's really cheap, but something they could afford. Or if they got the money, like they're gonna break the bread for it. So doing the Black Boy Art Show, I did very well. The crowd was lit. The Black Boy Art Show in Charlotte was real good. So when I did the one in Columbia, all my cousins, and that was this past Sunday. So the old high school friends, middle school friends came out, family came out. So that's home for me. So they really showed the support. And some of the younger people that was in attendance, it was like, yo, this is like something that's in DC. This is something that you could go to in Atlanta. So, we have to bring more of these events to South Carolina, whether it's in Greenville, whether it's in Columbia, Charleston, Myrtle Beach. We just got to know that. And I'm seeing a change in Charleston too, since I've been down there, because at the market, one thing I distinguish in Charleston, I moved to Charleston just to get away from a lot of the issues I was dealing with in Columbia. But I'm like, well, they got just about the same amount of black people in Charleston they do in Columbia. So when I got down to Charleston, they had a lot of black people down there, but they didn't have a lot of black institutions down there. Yeah. So I'm like, when the concerts came, it was like Keith Sweat and Fantasia. I'm like, man, that's it. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think recently, I think they brought Kevin Gates down there a few months ago. And that was big for Charleston, you know what I'm saying? Because I think that was the first time he came to Charleston. In my 9 years I'm down there, he came to Columbia about 4 times already, 3 or 4 times. So, so now I'm seeing the concerts is getting better now. Goody Mop came down there a few weeks ago, and that was pretty cool. And so, and with the African American Museum being open, I'm seeing an influx of Black customers, Black art buyers. So when they come by the market, I'm asking them, what brought you to Charleston? And they're saying, oh, I came from Minnesota, I came from Dallas, I came from, Alabama, just to come to the museum. So I'm saying that museum in which the opening date was June 27th, and already it have an impact with Black dollars, because it's definitely putting dollars in my pocket, So I'm definitely seeing that. And when they do come to Charleston, they're looking for something to do. Before the museum opened, they was always asking me, what is it that Black people do, here? And I'm like, well, I don't know. You probably go get some good food or go on the Gullah bus tour, which is something that I advise a lot of the locals to do in Charleston. Like we have a lot of great things to do, learning. And with me dealing with art in Charleston, I'm able to get invited to spaces that I wouldn't normally get invited to if I wasn't doing art. So I'm getting access to a lot of information that's not to the public, or something that's like in archives that's been locked up, and just having an opportunity to learn and ask questions about people, families. I'm more of a listener than a talker. I don't do as much talking, but when I'm at work, I ask the older folks about their family, about their parents, to kind of get an idea of how things were back then. You know what I'm saying? Because outside of the Geechee Gullah art that I do, I also paint a lot of the historic homes in Charleston, and I drive around. I take pictures, and I take pictures of dilapidated houses that are going to get tore down, and when they rebuild these houses or renovate these houses, it's not going to have that Charlestonian look. It's going to be more of a modern, sleek, contemporary look. So a lot of my artwork is really preserving Charleston history. A lot of the locals come through, especially Black, or even Black or white. A lot of the locals, the born and raised Charlestonians come there. They like, man, your artwork reminds me of my childhood. So, and I'm like, for real? But they point out some of the houses that I paint. Like, they know what streets they on. They know what families live in those houses, which I didn't know because I'm not from the area really. But I just, something that's drawn me to these houses. But one thing I do know, that that a lot of those houses I paint was built by slaves or former slaves. And I do a lot of research. I go back to a lot of the census in Charleston to see who lived in the house and see what the house was really used for. So I'm learning through my art as well. And I have mentors like Albert Austin, the guy who built the little mini house on the corner of Reed and America Street.
Yeah,
a little small, skinny, slim house.
Mm-hmm.
That brother is a walking library. His wife worked for the Charleston Historic Organization, I believe. I think that's the name of that. And that brother owns a lot of property downtown Columbia. I'm not downtown Charleston. And we had a conversation on America Street when I was on East Side one night, from 5 o'clock until about 10:30 at night. That's how long we talked, because the conversation was getting deeper and deeper. And if anybody know Albert Austin, he was old school Charleston head in his late 70s. He built or repaired a lot of those old houses that's on South of Broad Street. They would not let too many people do those houses. They won't even let Latinos do those houses. They will let Albert Austin do the house because he was trained, he was skilled, and taught that trade from his uncles and his family members. So if he's in his late 70s, you can imagine how old his uncles were at that time.
Yeah.
So like, they know those older homes inside out. And I mean, he really told me a lot. Like I said, I'm always constantly talking to the older folks. I was raised by old folks. I was raised by my great grandma, my grandma, and my great uncles taught me a lot of carpentry work as well. So I'm used to being around a lot of old folks. You know what I'm saying? It's easy for me to pick up a conversation with an elder.
Man, that's such a dope thing, man. And the way that you use your art as a communication tool, as much as you use it as a revenue builder, man, that's awesome. So now let's take it back to the beginning. Growing up in Columbia, take us into what it was like, being born and raised in the metro.
Man, like, I'm born. I'm 44 years old, so I'm born in 1978. I'm a 70s baby, but I got to see the 80s from the beginning to the end. So you're talking about everything. Falling in love with the big DM 101 FM that was playing in everybody's household. You
Yes,
had
sir.
DJ Prince Ice on Fridays and Saturdays.
Prince
And even back,
Ice.
Prince Ice, man, DJ Prince Ice went big ups to him. But you talking about 1985, I was about, I'm 78, 1983, I was 5 years old. And you talking about no hip hop on the radio, 1985. I think 1986, they started playing hip hop 2 days a week, which is on a Friday and a Saturday from 8 until midnight. So, everybody getting their little tape decks ready. They stuff toilet tissue, the cassette tapes, and recording because, they won't hear hip hop until the next following week.
Yep.
So, you talking about an era where a pre-crack era, you know what I'm saying? A pre-crack era where you really got to experience Black neighborhoods and Black communities. You know what I'm saying? You talking about if your parents didn't have any money, your mom cooked the food and made the food stretch for your friends come over and eat. You're talking about that era. I'm talking about that era of Columbia. I'm talking about pre-gangs where you don't have to worry about wearing the colors. Like that came on later on when I was out there. Like I was like 2021. And I grew up where your neighborhood means something. You didn't get called out what set you represented, what gang. You talking about what neighborhood. I grew up in my dad is from downtown Columbia, Green Street with Martin Luther King Park, Short Street, right around the corner of Gervais Street. That's considered downtown. One of the Waverly Street community. That's the lower Waverly Street community. The upper Waverly Street community is by Benedict College and Allen University, and they had the first Black hospital in that area at that time, because at that time Blacks couldn't go to the white hospitals, and my dad then was all born inside their houses because they wasn't allowed to go to the hospital, so they was giving birth. And my youngest uncle on my dad's side, he was the only child born in the hospital, and my mom's side is from like North Main, Greenview, Harlem Heights, Farrell Road. Just that side is more of the countryside. You would compare that to your downtown Green Street, Short Street, Center Street. That would be like your east side downtown, and your North Main would be more of your countryside. It could be like more your I wouldn't say Arlington, that's too far out. I would say about James Island, something like that, some Mosquito Beach. So but it's two different cultures as well. If you look in that in North Main area, most likely my uncle owned the farm out there. So whenever we got in trouble, we had to chase the pigs down. We had to feed the chickens, you know what I'm saying? But it was still kind of gutter out there, you know what I'm saying? Still gutter. But when you go to the city, you had like the bars, and every time I would come back from the city, I would learn something new, like breakdancing. Like, we had dancing contests, and I remember I won one by doing a pop lock. You know what I'm saying? I did like the electric boogaloo, and like nobody knew I got that move from. I saw some kids downtown Columbia doing it. I was okay. I'm gonna use that, and I actually won about 2 or 3 dance contests back then. That's when, that's when gangsters was scared to dance. Then, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you're talking about an era I grew up in, kindergarten. The coolest toys like He-Man, Transformers, like those, like the toys was out then. You had your Saturday morning cartoons. You had about 5 channels on television. So, if you didn't have any cable, you had to wait until the Saturday to watch cartoons. So, and that was a really big influence on my art, because I had a speech impediment growing up, and I probably used a lot of my drawing skills as a means of communicating. Back then, Grandma had encyclopedias. I drew in all the books, and my favorite show back then was Dukes of Hazzard. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. There was something about that generally. Yeah. I didn't know what that flag mean at the time, but it was something about the Dodge Charger was mean. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And Knight Rider. What else? Probably He-Man. So like those was like the shows that really impact my art. The Smurfs, the USA Network, Cartoon Express. That like that was the stuff that really like that's the bulk of my artwork today, even though it changed over the years. And I would draw those characters inside the encyclopedias. And at the age 3 and 4 years old, I had a pencil in my hand. My mom had her first child when she was 14. So, growing up, having a mother still a kid, when she had me, I was 21. So about time she was still young, about time she had all her kids. So I'm the youngest. So youngest, she was 21. So she was married to my dad for a few years, 11 years. And, that didn't last. So she became a single mother. So she really, as most Black women do, you have to put your boots on and go harder, But, we had a really strong support system because I come from a really big family in Columbia, especially my mom's side. A lot of my great uncles, they really built the Black Columbia, your Black neighborhoods like Greenview, Melda Lake, Hollywood Hills, almost any Black neighborhood on North Main Street, all the way down, all my uncles built, you know what I'm saying? And great uncles built. So they take me on to the job sites, just to look. And, sometimes I help. My dad, he was a commercial and resident painter. So I think that's why I got the interest painting from, because he painted houses, painted businesses, and he painted a lot of old Columbia.
Okay.
A lot of the buildings downtown before they knocked them down or renovated them. And he's taking me on the job with him too. So doing show and tell, the kids bring Transformers to school. Like I had the little bootleg Hot Wheels, you know what I'm saying? So the kids want, they trade in Transformers, but nobody won't want to trade me for my bootleg Hot Wheels. So I said, all right, So kindergarten, I remember doing show and tell. The kids always asked me to draw. You know what I'm saying? So the teacher was like, okay, Carlos, get up and draw. So I'm drawing He-Man and Prince Adam, Skeletor, all the characters. And, I'm saying, I'm going to get that Transformer. So I'm like, I'll trade this picture for this Transformer. The trade complete. Trade, done deal. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of use my art always as leverage. And, I know second grade, I was on the monkey bars with my friends playing. You can see the art trailer. You see the art teacher and another lady walking in the trailer. I didn't know what they was doing. Next thing I know, they walking out trailer, walking towards the playground, and they make a beeline straight to me. So they like, yo, they talked to my teacher, and I saw she pointed at me. I'm like, I might be in trouble. But when they approached me, they had like this big art kit because she was showing the lady all my artwork. I was always advanced with my art. When I was probably second grade, I was drawing like an 8th or 9th grader.
Wow.
So I think they really picked that up. I think the thing that really kind of slowed me down, I didn't have the resources at home due to the fact that mom was very young, single mother, and that was the beginning of the crack era too. So a lot of parents was missing out the house at that time. So alhamdulillah, that my mom never got on that substance, because if she did, it'd have been all hell. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So but with that, that era was like a new Usher. Hip hop was brand new. You're talking about hip hop, and from '85 breakdancing era with the Shell Toes, changing over to the Adidas Attitude. I'm a big sneakerhead, so sometimes I kind of distinguish the eras with sneakers. You know what I'm saying? So you went from Shell Toes to Adidas Attitudes. You know what I'm saying? So that was like 86, 87, when kind of breakdancing was coming very commercial. A lot of cats then, like left it up to the Latinos or the Asians start picking it up. And, you're talking about that really impacted my art as well, because I started drawing all of these characters. And these characters always had Adidas sweatsuits on. They had Nikes on. And I know y'all call Air Force Ones Willie D's.
Yep.
But we just call Cortez. It's not Cortez. We call those bullet toes in Columbia.
Okay.
So we just call those bullet toes. And that was around the time, you know, the late 80 gangster movement came out. You know what I'm saying? The gangster rap, NWA, but it really wasn't really full-fledged until then. But, you know, my artwork always resembled the culture. You know what I'm saying? It always resembled the culture. I was always good at graffiti. At the time, at the Boys Club, before they called it the Girls and Boys Club, it was only called the Boys Club back in the day. And people was like, yo, man, draw some graffiti. So I'm charging them 50 cents a paper. You know what I'm saying? I'll draw some graffiti for you. You know, $1 paper, $1 sheets, all, you know. So from that point, middle school came, and you're talking about around 91, 92. You're talking about the Jordan era then. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about, Jordan was hot, but I didn't know who Jordan was because I wasn't into basketball until about fourth or fifth grade. Fourth grade was the first time I seen my homeboy said, I got the Jordans. That was in second grade, but I wasn't interested in Jordan. I was still playing with toys then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but he was on a whole different level because, his household was set up a little bit different than mine. So, so about 2 years later, when the Jordan 4s came out, I was in fourth grade when the Jordan 4 was doing these little dances, and that's when you had your little team, your routine dances. Your homeboys come with y'all routine dances and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we was in fourth grade going to dance competitions and stuff like that, winning them. And you talking about, going into middle school. I was forced to go to the middle school was like in my neighborhood while my family members at, which is one of the rough parts of Columbia. And that was like 92. That's when the Bulls was starting their championships. 91, 92 was a pivotal time because that's when New Jack City came out. You know what I'm saying? And that was a time, we hear about crack in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? But in 91, 92, you saw the crack. You know what I'm saying? You saw the crack. You saw the war on drugs. You saw, and I mean by that, where one of my best friends, the guy who showed me the Jordans in second grade, his mom used to come on the school bus and beat him, because he always act up in school.
Yeah. So
she was one of them tough, like she had, all our moms the same way. They was hard on us. They disciplined us. They beat us. And, the school bus driver, I'm walking up the hill. She walking up the hill with the belt in her hand, walking to the bus stop. And everybody look at my man like, ooh. And the school bus pulled up in time. He thought he was saved. She told the bus driver to stop the school bus. She got on the school bus and beat the crap out of him. Only thing you saw, arms and legs reaching up behind the seat. Then a few months later, you saw his mom outside wearing a curtain around her body.
Oh no.
And you just saw him stop going to school. And you just saw a lot of the parents, especially the mother, the fathers, was in and out the houses, but the mothers was like their last line, you know what I'm saying? And once they got removed due to substance abuse, like, the kids really didn't have a chance, really. So my man, but and that's when you start seeing the effects. Fast forward to like 91, 92 in Columbia, you're talking about downtown Columbia. Green Street was always known as one of them streets you could say like, America Street. It was always had a name for itself. You know what I'm saying? My dad worked out there, cousins, uncles. So you're talking about every weekend I would go to my dad. I would spend the weekend with his mom every weekend. So every weekend we go over there. From Thursday, Friday, Saturday is a drug bust. Different houses getting kicked in. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't called trap houses. They were called crack houses then. They wasn't called bandos then. So you would see, about the time that Monday come, you would see the plywood on the windows and the doors, and you see the sign, the city of Columbia or Richland County owns this house or whatever. And you're talking about from 91 up into 2005, you know, and every time I visit Columbia, I visit my old neighborhoods. The only thing that's there now is a piece of grass. You know what I'm saying? Either they tore down the house or they moved the white folks in. And that's a 30-year plan. You're talking about from 91, 92, you're talking about the police, like the city locking up your house, boarding up your house. And you're talking about not only that, but different parts of Columbia, you will have roadblocks in neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? They got so bad in 1994 was like my freshman year of high school. So I lived in Newcastle, which is not too far behind Columbia Mall. And you know, it got to the point where people calling your house phone, yo, they got a roadblock this way. So you might want to stay home or go this way. If your license ain't right, if your registration ain't right, you probably want to stay home that night. But at the same time, they talking about but that was the war on crack. You know what I'm saying? The war on drugs. When I saw those roadblocks, you know what I'm saying, from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you know, you don't know where to go at. You know what I'm saying? Because you can make a left turn in the neighborhood and they got the roadblock and they gonna check your car. You know what I'm saying? And that happened from like 4 or 5 years straight. You know what I'm saying? So, and I didn't really understand that until I started putting the dots together when I saw that crack documentary on Netflix. And I'm like, damn, you know what I'm saying? And like I say, up north and out west, they dealt with crack before we did. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, that crack hit New York and Baltimore and Jersey and Philly and LA harder before it hit the South. You know what I'm saying? And back then, you had up north drugs, you had down south drugs. Like you have white people drugs and black people drugs. So at that time, crack wasn't a down south drug. You know what I'm saying? You probably had, you know, I remember my parents having marijuana with the yellow envelope, you know, it didn't come in the clear bags. It came like a yellow envelope, you know. So that's the trust you had in people at that time. That's how the game was at that time, you know. And growing up in Columbia, like my family built Black Columbia, but it also destroyed Black Columbia with the drugs, you know, bringing it down from Connecticut and New York. And, you know, you just saw the difference in the city, you know what I'm saying? And I just wish that a lot of younger Black folks could see the Black communities before pre-crack era, because I think we still haven't recovered from that yet. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about, even though I don't know, because I'm not out there, but I don't know anybody that smoked crack under the age 30. You know what I'm saying? They probably popping pills or sipping on something, sipping on some lean or whatever they do. But a lot of the crackheads that phased out. They done died out, got washed up, turned their life around. And you're thinking about the grandfathers, the great grandfathers of the younger generation, the great grandmothers in their 60s and 70s. Those were the crackhead era, you know, the ages 60s and 70s now. You know what I'm saying? You try to smoke crack at 75 years old, you might bust you hard, but the crack back then is different from the West. It was much stronger back then than it is now. So that's why a lot of people's getting hard busted up. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, talk about today in Columbia, you know, most Black teens, you know, want to chase out the pigskin or, you know, or basketball, you know what I'm saying? Or if the hoop dreams don't work out, the next thing is, you know, you want to be a rapper. So we have 3 options as young Black teenagers and young Black men is to be athletes or be rappers. And once you come to a point where either none of that stuff is coming out, I always had the drawing ability to, you know, the ability to be an artist, but I never took it as serious because at that time, you know, Michael Jordan, I want to be like Mike, you know what I'm saying? I had no Mike skills. I ain't even own a pair of Jordans either until I graduated after high school. So, but still, it just having the dream to be like him or be better than him. I think as Black men, you want to be Barry Sanders. That back then will be Barry Sanders, and but once your dreams don't come into existence, like what else next? You know what I'm saying? So I'm always talking to younger groups. I have some youth groups in Columbia over the years that I was able to hopefully influence, but they still chose their own path. You know what I'm saying? But they still see me in the city, in the Met Day, they still salute, give me a hug, you know what I'm saying, embrace. But I was one of those kids, I started playing football, very great at it. My grades was shot, you know what I'm saying? You talk going back to a mother who had a ninth grade education. My dad fought in Vietnam. He got out. He was a Marine. Once you go in the Marines, you don't come out the same too much. So, dealing with a mother who have limitations when it comes to education, she's only gonna provide you with the necessities. And that's food, clothing, and shelter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Never push college, never push anything. Just push. When you get out of school, you're gonna work. You know what I'm saying? And I really appreciate her to this day because she built the work ethic that me and my siblings have. Like none of us have college education, but we never gonna be jobless. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So she definitely installed hard work in us. You know what I'm saying? So I took that everywhere I went. And after the football thing didn't work out, after a major injury I had, I'm like, damn, what's next? My grades ain't gonna get me in college alone. So, after high school, I started running with the cats that I went to Eau Claire with. None of us graduated. Probably one of them did. But, a lot of South Carolina schools, they'll push you through, depending what school district you in, they'll push you on through. So a lot of the guys I ran with back then, none of us really graduated. But my mom, one thing she really made sure that I graduated. When I got kicked out of Eau Claire, I moved to Orangeburg. She pulled me to Orangeburg, and I finished in this program they had for 1 or 2 years. I was fortunate enough to get my high school diploma and my GED, and I was able to walk across the high school stage with a class that I didn't know at all. You know what I'm saying? So people like who the school is with the beard? You know what I'm saying? So, in high school, we got a beard. You know what I'm saying? So I had big diamonds in my ears. So, but anyway, from there, I tried Mentalist Tech. I went to Mentalist Tech, and that's when I took a graphic design. And I really didn't grasp the whole concept of graphic design. I just know I could draw. And when you draw, it's like you turning your sheet of paper over in school and doing doodles and sketches, And I always did that throughout school. Teachers all from first grade to whenever, like the teacher always got on me, like, stop drawing your book, stop drawing your homework, stop drawing your classwork. My mind was out here and something was going on in class. I wasn't in the class mentally. But when I went to Mentalist Tech, I flunked out of that because I had some really serious stuff going on, some deaths, some unexpected murders that took place around that time I was in college. So I really couldn't focus on school at that time.
Yeah.
So I had about 13 jobs. So I worked, like I always had that hard work ethic. So after some things happened with some homeboys I went to school with, I had a dream, some things happened. And one of my homeboys that did graduate from high school, he went into the Air Force. And because I told him something that I saw, I had a dream of, and he thought it was a setup or whatever. But after he left, and after some tragic events took place in my family, I had to leave too. My chances in surviving in the military was better than surviving in Columbia at that time.
Wow.
So I'm like, man, my man went, so I'm about to follow his path because I'm not college bound like that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe military showed me some discipline, so show me some structure, which I'm glad that I'm did that because that was one of the best decisions I made. I was in the military for 5 years, still doing nigga shit. You know what I'm saying? but that didn't last too long. But it got me out of Columbia for the time I need to get out.
Yeah.
And when I got out of Columbia, because if I didn't go into the military, I probably wouldn't had opportunity to even see out anything out of South Carolina. Our vacation was driving from Columbia to Charleston for a few hours, go to Sullivan's Island, and go right back to Columbia. Ain't no hotel. You're gonna pack some ham and turkey sandwiches with mayonnaise, and you're gonna eat it on the beach, and you're going back to Columbia. And that was our vacation for the whole summer, you know what I'm saying? So, but when I went into the Air Force, I'm like, man, first time on an airplane, I'm flying out to Texas, San Antonio, and, you meeting people from all walks of life in the military. And one thing about me, when I went to Richard Northeast, which was, I went to Eau Claire and Richard Northeast. Richard Northeast was a school that kids from Fort Jackson went to. And, most military bases are very diverse. You're going to have almost every nationality in the world on the military installations. And those kids went to our school at Richard Northeast. So, I went from a black middle school, stayed back in the black middle school, W.G. Sanders in Greenview, move over to closer to Fort Jackson where the diversity was at. And I'm like, my eyes exploded because I'm like, man, I'm starting to meet Puerto Ricans, Filipinos, starting to meet Koreans. I just thought the whole world was filled with black and white people. But when I went over there, it was like, man, this is pretty cool. And everybody, I'm from this area. I'm from Fort Jackson. So, when I went to high school, I'm like, okay, the same kids transferred to high school. So it was a bigger platform. But I didn't last there. I got kicked out of there. And I went, I was forced to go back to the hood, which was Eau Claire, because my family from the area. So all my cousins there. So I didn't have to worry about nothing. Like, I had a big family, all my cousins there. So that was another fun thing that, it didn't last long either. But when I went to the military, that was when I really opened up, because I'm getting exposed to all this culture. I'm getting exposed. Even when I was in Texas, San Antonio, like, it felt like you really in Mexico because all the streets is Spanish, Spanish names, Martinez, Lopez, Juarez. So you're looking at the phone book, you send up but Mexican names in the phone book. So you're like, damn, is this Mexico or America or the States? But that was an experience for me as well. I really love the city, San Antonio. They sent me up to Wichita Falls, Texas, which is close to Oklahoma City. That's northern Texas. Texas is a very big state, very different cultures and stuff. After that, they sent me to North Dakota. And that was a game changer for me because North Dakota, everybody the same color the snow is.
Yeah.
And I think they had 2% blacks in the whole state. and everything like Little House on the Prairie. You're looking at nothing but land, no trees, no buildings, and you just see land. And, and the way that the whites treated the blacks, it wasn't the same way the white treat blacks in the South. It was more of curiosity because on time they probably saw blacks on MTV up there. And I was up there back in from 2001 to 2002, and they didn't have BET at the time. We had cable. You had to order a special package deal to get BET. It wasn't part of basic cable.
Wow.
And they didn't sell Timberlands. They ain't, you pair of J's or something like that. But they ain't sell no Timbs up there with all that snow up there. But I was very intrigued with the God's creation because I was able to see a lot of buffaloes, porcupines. And one thing about me being an artist, you study nature. You know what I'm saying? Because you're trying to imitate it. You know what I'm saying? Eventually, I wasn't enjoying the way I'm doing now, but I did some little work here and there. But I always captivate and have a good memory of nature, whether it's leaves on a tree, birds, and that's something but all the countries I visit, all the countries I lived in, all the cities I visit, I always look at the creations. I always look at the birds. I look at the animals. I look at the trees. You know what I'm saying? I look at the plants. And that's how I really know I'm not in South Carolina. I'm not in Columbia. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I'm in Charleston, I take a lot of breaks. You know what I'm saying? And one reason I did move to Charleston is to be closer to the water. You know what I'm saying? And it's very therapeutic over the years. It really saved me just going to one of the beaches or going to the waterfront downtown, and so that was one of the things that really got me out of Columbia. And and when I came back, I did come back to Columbia back in 06. And when I did that, I hit the ground running because I got caught up on some charges in the military when I was living in Hawaii. So I'm like, man, like I burned all my bridges. I tried college, that didn't work out. But one thing, when I was in the military, I always had a second job, always went to school. So it wasn't just the military. I was trying to advance myself while I was doing something. So I was going to the University of Hawaii, to the University of Maryland. I was doing referee jobs. I was trying to get. I worked directly for Nike, not Foot Locker. I worked for the Nike company, and I was trying to get to headquarters up there, but I fucked all that up. You know what I'm saying? But I always make a way for myself, and somehow always find a way to burn that way. You know what I'm saying? So I have to constantly reinvent myself to go the path. And believe me, what I'm doing right now, I planned this 40 years ago. It's nothing like, I planned this shit 40 years ago. When I was 4 years old, I knew I was going to be doing art. So with all the twists and turns, I'm still where I was supposed to be. I'm probably going to be on time, but I'll be there. I'll get there. You know what I'm saying? So when I came back to Columbia, I saved up a lot of cheese. I had a lot of money I saved up when I was living in Hawaii, and I deployed to Iraq. I took some of that money and some other money I had, and I'm like, man, like it's gonna be hard for me to get a job, whatever on my record and right now, da da da. So I'm like, I'm gonna go on with the go-to. I'm going with the artwork. You know what I'm saying? So I drove to Charlotte. I brought an iMac. You know what I'm saying? Fast rewind, my man, and when I was working for Nike, Hawaii has a large Japanese Asian community, period. And I was working for Nike. 70% of our customers was Japanese tourists. So we had to learn Japanese words every day. It was like a word of the day, konnichiwa, whatever to get the customer. But we also had people working on the floor that speak Japanese. And when I went in for the interview, I was a minority, not amongst whites, but I was a minority amongst Asians. So when they interviewed us at Nike, it has three supervisors, 3 managers, and 3 applicants. So I was the only black applicant, and I was sitting between 2 Asian guys, and they asked us the same question. So everybody trying to come up with a better answer. You know what I'm saying? So my man on my left, he coming with some killer answers. I'm like, man, I can't beat that. You know what I'm saying? So happily to come to find out, me and him end up getting a job. And his name is Kao Ito. His last name is Japanese Ito, Japanese name. And his birthday is a few days after mine. So when we got hired, and like I was very interested because I'm listening to what he say. At 18, he started his own business. Not only had his own business, but he was driving a Suzuki Jitsa to school. You know what I'm saying? And he owned a NSX. I'm like,
what?
Nigga, you lying. You know what I'm saying? You lying. So, and I started getting introduced to his people. They telling me his background. And his dad was a helicopter pilot for the Honolulu Police Department. So very good family, very cool family. But he was a business, he was a business himself. So I was interested in what he was saying during the interview. So during the time he was working, we kind of linked up. And in Hawaii, it's a different how can you say it? There's different ethnic groups in Hawaii. All of them Pacific Asians or Pacific Islanders, but it's a culture melting pot. You have about over 50 different nationalities on one
Wow.
island, and they all come from Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Micronesia, country probably never heard of, Fiji, but they all have their communities. You know what I'm saying? And the Japanese is like the higher echelon because they got the money. You know what I'm saying? Then you may see some Koreans after that. Then, like at the bottom of the total post, the Samoans. The Samoans, excuse my language, the niggas of the island because they live in the projects and they love to use the word nigga to each other. You know what I'm saying? Like they invented the word or something. So, and it was a different beef, but that's another conversation. But Hawaii really, that brother Cal Ito really showed me how to really start a business. And even though my mom had a ninth grade education, she said she was gonna open up a business one day when we was driving down the street. And I was living in Korea at that time when she started a business. And at that time, that was the throwback jerseys. That was Mitch and Ness jerseys, that era, like 02, 03. So I'm living in Korea. You could get a throwback with all the Mitchell Ness tags on it inside outside for a good $25. You know what I'm saying? So I'm buying bulks of Avrex, bulks of ones. I'm like stacking everything up. And we got those things going back to my mom's store. So she running the store over here in South Carolina. And I'm supplying her with the clothes, and she's buying her stuff that her clientele, her customers like to buy too. So, but that was one of the main things in my mom's ninth grade education, able to start her own business. So that inspired me when I came back home. I said, okay, I'm gonna take this business model that my mom used and apply it to me because I got the money to start, at least get my business up and going. And I thought about my guy Cal Ito back in Honolulu, because he actually started a clothing company called Morris Fiber, which he had stores in LA, Hawaii, and Japan. And since he was Japanese, he had the connection to Japan already. And he was going to Thailand to get to check out the fabrics. So he had a very strong run for like a good 10-year run. I was able to help him start grassroots. Like when it was grassroots, I was able to start that. And he actually showed me how to do silk screen printing because he had some automatic silk screens in there. He had some manual silk screens. So he taught me silk screens. And when I got kicked out of the military, a lot of the people I was rocking with, it was giving me going to race stuff. I mean, very, very good friendships. And he actually print up a lot of shirts for me to take back to South Carolina to get started. You know what I'm saying? So he print up a bulk of T-shirts and melt them in the mail. And one thing he gave me was a CS3 Photoshop Adobe Suite disc. It was formatted for iMac. That's when I went to Charlotte and purchased that iMac. And from that disc he gave me, it was on and popping because I was able to produce some of the illest stuff that I could really think of. And this was talking about 2005. And then when I say ill, that's when MySpace was popping. And that's when I was getting a lot of jobs, a lot of contracts. And I did a few clothing companies and underground clothing companies out of New York. I had it was a rap group called You and I out from LA. And that's the beginning of the hipster era, the skinny jeans era. Like one thing about Hawaii has a strong Japanese street fashion. So when y'all was wearing y'all 5 size, y'all long t-shirts out here back in 05 and 03, 04, they was wearing skinny jeans in Hawaii because that was a Japanese street culture thing. You know what I'm saying? So back in 03, 04, they was wearing skinnies back then. And I couldn't wear that to South Carolina because my niggas but I wasn't skinny dude, a skinny jean guy anyway. But I'm a fashion guy, and I saw, okay, they wearing big tees out here in the mainland, but they wearing skinnies back out in Hawaii because of Japanese street culture. So so when I got that Photoshop CD, I downloaded it into my iMac, and I did that because I saw my man Cal Ito out in Hawaii had his iMac. So I tried to have my setup similar to his. I know I was more talented to him because I'm an artist, I draw. So I know I could do more with it than he could. And I produced this thing right here called there's a series called Once Upon a Time in 1989. And this is basically the storyline take place in the late 80s, early 90s, and it's about 5 kids from inner city, and they carrying on the hip hop culture. So anything that dealt with politics in 88, 89, 90, dealing with culture, dealing with comedy, I wrote the storyline, I designed it, I did the coloring, and I did all that in Photoshop. And it was a real big thing on MySpace because it was a weekly issue. I would release the issue once a week, and I had like followers up to 20 to 30,000 followers, which to me that was big for MySpace. And I had people from France giving me like kudos, and I had people that wanted to really work with me, and people were seeing my work. And there's a group called UNI, U-N-I. They actually had Kendrick Lamar inside their video, and that's the first time Kendrick Lamar had any television appearance. And they had a song called you get a chance, YouTube that group, very dope group called UNI. U-N-I. And there was Pac Div. They came up with the ranks with a West Coast group called Pac Div.
Yeah, love Pac Div.
Yeah, they Kendrick Lamar, they all ran in the same circle, but they was the first ones who really brought Kendrick on. And they hit me up one time. One of the group members, 2 group members, one named Thursday, and the other one named YO. And YO hit me up and like, yo, I love what you're doing with your comic series. And they was coming out with their EP called Love Supreme. And at that time, Dunks is really hot because Dunks is coming back. Like Dunks is hot again now. So like, Dunks had their time, but back in 03, 04, 05, 06, that's when Dunks was really at their peak in 05, 06. When Lupe was winning, Lupe Fiasco and Pharrell was winning. Nike came out with a release called the Dunk Supremes or the Love Supremes, which had nothing to do with the skateboard company Supreme out of New York. But the color was, so they hit me up to do an issue. They sent outside, and I was talking back and forth on my email. I'm like, what is y'all favorite urban boutique? Because one thing I learned about Hawaii had a lot of high fashion. There are urban boutiques, and the West Coast have urban boutiques. So I said, what's your favorite boutique? They said Undefeated. Undefeated, the clothing company that do collaboration with Nike and Converse. So I drew a joint, same thing, same setup with the comic book series. And that was part of their artwork, their TV installation. So, and some companies called Diamond Head out of New York. So I got some rounds. I definitely seen a lot of my work being copied. Someone hit me up like, yo, I seen somebody do this, and these emails I was getting, I didn't know these people, but it was just telling me like, yo, I'm seeing your work being used by other people.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to talk about it because like, that nigga bugging, but I'm still getting these, I was getting those emails. I'm checking. I'm like, the artist may not know about this, but whoever doing this art, whoever the art director is, they know. You know what I'm saying? They know because, and for other people to hit me up, they know this too. So, but being in Columbia, being in South Carolina is a small market. So you could only go so far. So you got to go and hit the road. Most of the famous people out of South Carolina didn't get their success in South Carolina. They had to leave. You talking about James Brown had to leave. Eartha Kitt had to leave. You know, Joe Lewis had to leave. Dizzy Gillespie had to leave. You know, my man Jesse Jackson had to leave. You know, so you know, but that's when I started making my trips to Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get on the circuit. One of my homegirls named P, she actually played basketball for the University of South Carolina. And when I started doing my art, you know, it's a small city, so everybody started running to each other. I'm starting an art show. I'm meeting poets, I'm meeting artists, I'm meeting rappers, I'm meeting singers, I'm meeting all these people. But we all got our wheels spinning in the mud because Columbia ain't no blow up city like that. So somehow my guy that I went to middle school with, he was one of the dopest rappers that the world may not ever see, but he actually made music in France. He got a few CDs and videos he did in France, and we grew up together. And he saw me at the club one night, and I did my first art show in Columbia around that time. So, you know, I'm not to go out, you know, I'm coming back home from the military. I don't know too many people because I meet people around the world. But when I went out, I started seeing faces I went to school with. So I'm getting love. People dap me up, ask me what I'm doing. So I got invited to a studio session, and I'm starting meeting people. So one of the females I met, she played basketball for University of South Carolina. She was getting into learning how to play the guitar and singing. And she wanted me, I started doing a lot of her artwork. I did CD cover, I did promotion work, I did flyers. So I'm starting doing other people as well. So this is talking about 2006 in Columbia. And at that time, I'm like, okay. When she moved to Atlanta, because she said she ain't going nowhere in Columbia. So she moved to Atlanta, and she invited me to go with her. So I'm making my trips to back and forth Atlanta to Columbia, which is a 3-hour drive from Columbia to Atlanta. So I'm able to make that and even turn around and come back in the same day. So she put me in these spots, nightclubs, open mic nights. I ran into my guy named IL. IL was a guy who hosted this music showcase called I Keep It Classic, which it was sponsored by DJ Craig Street on B103 in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So, you know, he was hosting it, but Greg Street was the one who was like, you know, behind the whole thing. So my man IL, he was from Ohio. He had his whole crew from Ohio to move to Atlanta. So when they went and checked out my girl Peace doing her show, so Peace told me to come to her show to set up my artwork. So my artwork set up. At that time, I designed the t-shirts. So they coming in. Everybody in Atlanta was coming to these shows. It was like, yo, like you got some of the best t-shirts we seen. So I'm selling t-shirts, and I did the thing called Sneaker Pimps too, which was a big sneaker exhibition back in 2006, 2005. Sneaker Pimps, they would invite. It was like the same thing as Blackboard Art Show, but instead of art, they had art on sneakers.
Okay.
And you could only get your exclusive sneakers when Jay-Z dropped the 40 Air Force Ones. That was part of the art exhibition. You had a lot of one of ones in his art exhibition. So they hit me up to do artwork for that one. They had Clips at that time performing one year with Pusha T and Malice. One year they had Big Boy performing. So it was promoted in the Vibe magazine at that time. Source magazine. That's when magazines were still a thing before they went dead due to online publications. So my girl Angie, you know, she got in good with the guy IL who did I Keep It Classic music showcase. So I'm holding on to a coattail because her being a female, she didn't really trust niggas like that, you know. So I'm, you know, that's my girl from Columbia. We rolling together, we in Atlanta together. So you got my back, I got your back. So a lot of people's like my name was getting out in the circuits. My man IL is crazy because they filmed a movie one night called Highway 420 with Lil Duval and Devin the Dude. And I was an extra in that. My man IL, they was promoting Sahai the Prince that night. A lot of people not familiar with Sahai the Prince, but if you know anything about Atlanta hip hop, you know, this is pre-ghostwriting for Kanye West. You know what I'm saying? So I'm chilling in the studio, but man, IL, like we already built a connection through my girl Peace that played basketball for USC. So I'm start doing my trips to the A by myself because I'm rubbing elbows with everybody down there now. So like I could move on my own now. So I would go to Patchwork Studios because that's when they was doing they mixtapes at Patchwork Studios. That's the peak of Jeezy them. So I would print up T-shirts for them for their music showcase. And one thing about this music showcase, it brought a lot of people through the ranks in Atlanta. It brought Saha the Prince there, Yellow Wolf, Waka Flocka, dude named Alligator, and a lot of people who I'm naming, some that make it. You know what I'm saying? But the name was a buzz in A at that time. You know what I'm saying? And through the showcase, I was able to have my platform, my artwork, and my T-shirts at that time. So I'm constantly meeting people like Jason Jeter. He was the executive producer for Grand Hustle, and when I think you said something today earlier on your Instagram post when your homeboy when high school came to your job and he gave you a compliment, and sometimes that compliments that push you that make you go harder. Yep. You know what I'm saying? And just like that, I'm rubbing elbows with Rick Ross. He buying my product, but when I go back home, I got to take I-20 East back home, and the lights get dimmer and the woods get thicker.
Yeah.
And I'm back in my little hole back in Columbia, like, damn, I'm with this dude. I'm looking on TV just yesterday, but he got the big house. He got the millions. I'm still working as a janitor. You know what I'm saying? But I'm with this dude yesterday smoking a blunt with him. You know what I'm saying? So but they're like, damn, but you really see, but I always told myself, because when I went to Atlanta, one thing that kept me safe was my Islamic belief, my foundation. And, I would get offers. Like, for example, when I was an extra in the movie with Lil Duval and Devin the Dude, that was being filmed on Peter Street, downtown Atlanta. And if anybody familiar with downtown Atlanta, Peter Street is more like a business district. But inside the movie, they made it seem like it's the hood. Drive-bys and people getting hit in the head with bottles, women fighting. But that was part of the film. But Peter Street is one of the business districts in Atlanta. So when I did that, so I'm like looking at myself, one of the guys that was been extras in the movie, me and him was together, and he asked the lady who was responsible for casting the extras, he asked her, "Are y'all filming tomorrow?" And that was a Friday night, and he said tomorrow, that would have been a Saturday. She said, "Yeah, we filming at Magic City." We said, "Oh well, shit, it's a green light." She said, "Y'all come out to film?" Yeah, we'll be there. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And she was like, "All right, you gotta be there at 1:00." So you're talking about 1:00 in Magic City, 1:00 in the afternoon. I ain't talking about AM, 1:00 in the afternoon. They was swimming from 1 to 6 p.m. And at that time, I had a youth group in Columbia, and I was coaching a football team in Columbia too. And that was before I had any kids of my own. That was before I had any marriages and stuff. So, I'm always telling my people at work, like, yo, like, we're going to be like, we sit in front row on the hardwood Atlanta Hawks game one day. You know what I'm saying? We're going to go hard one day.
Yeah.
And I saw that as that day. Then they said, come to Magic City. And I was a strip club king at one time, but that was before my conversion, to Islam. And that day I had to make one of the biggest decisions, go inside the strip club to see, to sell my product, which, I'm a very strong-minded person. It'd be hard for me to get broken down, you know what I'm saying? But it's just the fact that I didn't want to be in that kind of environment on film, you know what I'm saying? Because years later, my kids may pick that up and I'm like, damn, Dad, you was out there like that? But so it was one of the hardest decisions to make, not to attend that shooting at Magic City. So I backed out of it, drove back to Columbia, brokenhearted, like for 2 weeks sick on the stomach, just seeing the opportunity. And it was calling me, the casting was calling me to come back for certain parts of the movie. And it's a very funny movie. It's like a bootleg Friday. But when I saw the cast had the white lady from Living Color in there. It had the Puncharelli from Chips, the old show Chips. It had Eddie Griffith. So it has some heavy hitters in there. But it just wasn't my calling. When something telling me don't fuck with it, don't fuck with it. You know what I'm saying? And when I make it to a spot, I want to make it to a spot where I'm comfortable, where I'm not compromising myself. You know what I'm saying? On my beliefs and stuff like that. You know.
100%.